And it's not just these guys. It's not just the usual suspects. It's not just McCaffrey and Debo and Ayuk and Kittle. Kittle was very quiet, and I think that's the easy thing to do, to say, well, hey, what do you expect when your stars don't step up? Well, I know. I don't know. I told you this is one of my top 5 Super Bowls. One of my top 5 Super Bowl catches does not involve John Stallworth and Lynn Swann and the acrobatic catches of the 70s and early 80s. You know, one of the best catches I've seen was from Mario Manningham. One of the best throws
That's one of
and
the best
catches.
throws and catches. Yes.
Eli
100%.
Manning to Mario Manningham.
Yes.
And it was it was like the ball was divinely guided into the hands of Manningham, who negotiated the sideline. And you're like, who the hell's Mario Manningham? That's the point. Sometimes in the Super Bowl, it's a guy you're like, who is this dude?
That was Jawan Jennings. That was Jawan Jennings for a minute. Like, Jawan Jennings was having the game of his life for San Francisco. I mean, they had that.
At any critical moment, they needed somebody to make you go, turn you into a mouth breather.
Honestly, man, I'm not. I'll be honest with you. I'm not. This is not an excuse. I know what you said about San Francisco and their fans, which, for the record, I'm not one of. I've told y'all, I'm not a fan of any team.
I know.
I root for stories, and I root against Michael Holley. That's what I root for.
I appreciate that.
I root for stories, and I root against Michael Holley.
There's a lot of love
So this was about, this Niners thing for me was way more about the Eagles than it was about the 49ers. This Brock Purdy thing is about people who don't know shit about football talking about football. That's why I'm on this Brock Purdy thing. So, but Michael has pointed out that those of us who are invested in the 49ers tend to find all sorts of reasons, explanations, or, excuses for why things don't go the 49ers' way. This is not one of those times. But Dre Greenlaw, losing Dre Greenlaw, the way that they lost Dre Greenlaw, I'm not saying, look, we've already talked about Mahomes is inevitable. So this isn't a reprise of, if Purdy's elbow hadn't exploded thanks to Hassan Reddick, which, again, Kyle Shanahan decided to block him with, I believe, a backup tight end, not even George Kittle. If that doesn't happen, then the Niners win the NFC Championship last year. That's not what this is. But Dre Greenlaw might have been on his way. The way he was playing, he might have been on his way to doing what you're describing, or what you're saying that the Niners needed more of. He might have been on his way. He might have been on his way to that.
Yeah, man.
That was devastating. And the way he went out, when he went out, devastating. Absolutely devastating.
Tough. It was tough to watch. I mean, a lot of guys, and I'm sure now, this is not just a San Francisco thing. I'm going to cross sports a little bit. One of the things that hockey fans love, that I find annoying, but hockey fans love this. At the end of the season, every hockey team does this. Whenever they get eliminated, they just tell you all the things that guys are playing with. And they punctuate it with, he's a hockey player. Like one year, Patrice Bergeron in Boston.
He had a punctured lung,
Punctured lung, exactly.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Well, damn it, he shouldn't have been out there in Game 6. Punctured lung? Take his ass to the hospital. What are you doing?
Right.
Who cares about Lord Stanley's Cup? Take him to the hospital. He's playing with a punctured lung? Then y'all reckless. Right. Okay? This is some malpractice. Everybody, all of y'all are accountable. Anyway, I know if San Francisco wanted to, they could do something like that. I mean, I know Deebo Samuel. There's no way Deebo Samuel should have been back in that game yesterday. Props to him. Mm-hmm. That was that's a major injury he has, and he played out there with a major injury. Greenlaw was probably dealing with something anyway. George Kittle was dealing with something. Went to the locker room and came back.
Yeah.
And I know all teams have this at this time of year, but I think San Francisco in particular was a little banged up. Now, if they're healthy, do they win the game? Probably the same result, probably lose. But I do want to give them credit, and I feel for a guy like Greenlaw, who's just, it's a non-contact injury. You're just there on the sideline. You're excited to get back on the field, and then your Achilles goes out. It's tough to see.
This is why I was so fired up off the top about did Shanahan mess up by receiving the opening kickoff to start overtime. Because I don't, again, and I know the stat about Shanahan. I know this is his third double-digit lead that he's held in the Super Bowl. But I would point out that if you're going to lose 3 double-digit leads, losing 2 to Patrick Mahomes and 1 to Tom Brady is probably more about the other guy than it is about you. Are there plays he could have called differently? Absolutely. But he didn't lose them to just anybody. I mean, he lost them to, maybe the 2 best ever, which, again, we'll get to that in a second. But the reason I was so fired up about that idea is this is not one of those games. This is not one of those games that, for sports talk, television producers, where it's like, did the Chiefs win it or did the Niners lose it? Whenever there's a comeback, whenever somebody's, leading earlier in the game and they lose said lead, or there's always that, how much of the blame pie, blame or credit? I don't think that's what this is. I mean, I think both teams played hard, Rasheed Wallace. Both teams played hard. And honestly, I don't think this is one of those. I don't think this is one of those games where you point to things. I mean, did San Francisco make mistakes? Yes, they did. So did Kansas City. Kansas City did not play its best game. But that's what they have going for them right now. Like, this is not their best team. They didn't play their best game, and yet they find ways to win. I just didn't like the idea of conveniently blaming Kyle Shanahan when we should be crediting the brilliance of the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes in particular. We're kind of saying the similar things here. That's why I went off the start.
Well, let me ask you. We say this is not Kansas City's best team. We agree. Anybody who's watched them and they're
well, you know what? I'm sorry. Let me take that back.
Most talented.
This is me. No, not even that. This is me self-editing in real time. It's not their most exciting team. I think for years we looked at Patrick Mahomes putting up 5,000 yards, high 4,000s, and regular season MVP, which he was just last year. This year's offense was much more of a grinded out offense, a power offense. We all know about the receivers. I cited it earlier, dropping more passes than anybody. It was a frustrating offense. It wasn't fireworks on offense. They had one of the best defenses in the league all season. So I guess I should say this is a different Kansas City Chiefs team than what we associate with Andy Reid or Patrick Mahomes or Travis Kelce. This is more of a gritty team. This is more of a grimy team. This is more of a dirty work, lunch pail team. There's that cliche.
Yeah.
Than I think we would associate with the brand of the Kansas City Chiefs. But versatility is now their calling card. That's their brand, versatility. They win in a number of ways, at quarterback and across the board.
And you know what? Mahomes might say, oh, it's not, you're right, Michael Smith. This team is not as exciting as other versions of the Kansas City Chiefs, but I know more now. I know more now at 28 than I did the first time I won the Super Bowl. I mean, he's even said that in interviews, and I don't know if he's being humble or if he's telling the truth, where he's like, when he first got into the league, he really couldn't read defenses. He wasn't really trying to do that. And so now just what's between his ears is a lot more complex and a lot more sophisticated than it was when he first got to the Super Bowl, like year 3 of his career. So maybe he feels like he's better now than he was then. But I'm going to ask you, maybe San Francisco. Maybe this is not their best team either if Brock Purdy actually grows up. Brock Purdy's still a young player. So it's not very often guys in year 2 get to the Super Bowl, quarterbacks. And if you think they got a good team, if you think it's a good player in a good system, maybe Brock Purdy in year 3, Brock Purdy in year 4 kind of changes the complexion, because we've seen this happen before. Maybe change, or do you think he's reached his ceiling?
I think he's plenty good. No, I don't think it's either. I don't think he's reached his ceiling. I think he can still get better. Hell, he's better this year than he was last year. I think he can still get better. But I don't think that yesterday was about what Brock Purdy couldn't, can't, or didn't do.
Well, I think
he was pretty good enough to win. Well, no, yeah. But I'm saying but he didn't, but it wasn't because he just. This is interesting. I like Tony Romo a lot. I've known Tony Romo a long time. I found it fascinating how much Tony Romo was talking about nerves. Prior to the opening kickoff, he talked about nerves. I think at one point he even said that Brock Purdy's not going to be able to breathe. I'm like, it's a little hyperbolic, just a little bit.
Yeah.
Brock
And
Purdy,
maybe you're projecting. Maybe you're projecting.
You beat me to it. You beat me to it.
Yeah,
because
you didn't play. You didn't make it to that game.
This is not gang up on Shelby Day. I'm not going to do that to my man Tony. I've known Tony since his first start in the NFL. I like Tony.
And
but having said that,
I got a lot of love for him too. But
one of the first things he told me, I'll tell a quick story. One of the first things he told me when I met him, this would have been 2006 at Carolina. I covered his first start when he replaced Drew Bledsoe. And we were talking, and when he found out that I lived in New England, and we talked about my background, and I started at the Boston Globe, one of the first things he said was, in preparation for taking over the job, he read Patriot Reign. So he got a lot from Tom Brady by way of Michael Holley's first of many New York Times bestsellers. So that's how we go back with Tony.
Thank you, Tony.
Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, no, I think Brock Purdy was plenty good enough last night and is good enough to win a Super Bowl. There were two passes that come to mind. One was the incompletion prior to the go-ahead field goal in overtime.
Yeah.
The other was an incompletion. I forget when it was in the game. I'm beg your pardon on that.
Where Chris Jones got on him?
Samuel. Both instances, Chris Jones got on him. If I'm not mistaken, the incompletion. If I'm not mistaken, but I know he was under pressure. I believe it was Chris Jones.
One was to Ayuk, one was to Debo.
Right, so it was Debo going this way, which is overthrow in the end zone, and the other one was the incompletion prior to the go-ahead field goal. That was Ayuk. Right. I believe both of them he was pressured by Chris Jones. Now, could he make? Maybe he is capable of making that throw next year and beyond. I don't know. Difficult throw with Chris Jones bearing down on you to be accurate in those situations. So
Chris
again,
Jones
not making
was
excuses.
a monster.
Thank you.
Was a
That's what I'm
monster
saying.
yesterday.
Hats off to Chris Jones, more so than it's about. And hats off to Steve Spagnuolo. We haven't said his name this entire show so far. Hats off to the Kansas City Chiefs' elite defense, more so than it is about what Brock Purdy is or is not at this point in his career.
Hey, thank you for watching Brother from Another. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, go ahead and do that now. Don't forget you can catch us 3 to 4 weekdays on PeacockTV.com and on Sirius XM Channel 85.